This amendment has nothing whatsoever to do with exclusion, but it has everything to do with protecting the traditional and historical definition of marriage as a union between one man and one woman. And contrary to what the opponents of this resolution might say today, this amendment will simply preserve the traditional definition of marriage as it has existed for millennia. These activist judges substituted legal precedent and the will of the American people with their own personal desires and political beliefs. Their decision to scrap the traditional definition of marriage has forced us to now consider enshrining the definition of marriage into our Constitution.
Mr. Speaker, I very much regret that the Republican majority in this House has brought this bill to the floor. This bill, to put it simply and bluntly, is about adding discrimination and intolerance to the United States Constitution. This is about the Republican majority once again trying to divide and polarize the nation. It's about the Republican leadership taking something that should be about love and turning it into a weapon of hate. I'm proud, Mr. Speaker, to be from Massachusetts, the home of the nation's first state constitution. In Massachusetts, over 8,000 same-sex couples have been married since May of 2004, when it became legal. I should advise my colleagues that Massachusetts hasn't fallen off the map into the Atlantic Ocean. The sun still rises and sets in the Commonwealth. The Red Sox still play at Fenway, and life goes on. The only thing that is different is that couples of the same sex who love each other, want to spend the rest of their lives together, and want to get married can do so. It means that men and women who happen to be gay are able to enjoy the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities as men and women who happen to be straight. And, Mr. Speaker, that is how it should be. Those who have continued to advocate a ban on same-sex marriage are on the wrong side of history. There are some here who claim that they are on some sort of moral crusade to protect the institution of marriage. To them I say, worry about your own marriage.
This vote will serve as an opportunity for each and every member of this body to go on record in support or in opposition to protecting the traditional definition of marriage. And after this vote, each of us will be judged accordingly by our constituents, and I can say with a clear conscience and without hesitation that I will support this rule, I will support the underlying resolution for the sake of the sacred institution of traditional marriage and for the sake of our precious children.
I've been happily married to the same woman for 17 years without the help or interference of Congress. What we should be protecting are the civil and human rights of all Americans. The fact that same-sex marriage is legal in my home state has had no impact on my marriage, except that we were invited to more weddings. Same-sex marriage is a threat to no institution, to no individual. The underlying bill before us would not only add discrimination to the Constitution for the first time in our history, it would repeal, it would actually take away the rights of thousands of Americans. What do the supporters of this bill say to the gay couples in Massachusetts who are now legally married? Our family members, our neighbors, our co-workers, the people who sit next to us in church. Do you say, your marriage is now meaningless and we're going to take away your rights? Do you say we are sending you back to second-class citizenship? Do you say that we have so much hatred for who you are that we are willing to tarnish the United States Constitution? Marriage law in this country has traditionally been left to the states. Indeed, even in Massachusetts, the same Supreme Judicial Court that the proponents of this bill decry recently ruled that a referendum banning same-sex marriage can go forward. That referendum is currently working its way through the process. And I believe, of course, that the referendum should and will fail, that the citizens of Massachusetts would not vote to turn back the clock. But that should be up to us, Mr. Speaker, not to the people of Colorado or Georgia or anywhere else. In addition, this bill jeopardizes not just same-sex marriage in Massachusetts, but domestic partnership and civil union laws in other parts of the country. The proposal before us is so poorly drafted that legal experts disagree on exactly what effect it will have on those laws. That means, of course, that the issue will end up back in the courts, which is ironic given the constant court bashing by the bill's supporters. Mr. Speaker, the impact of this debate goes far beyond constitutional arguments. The proponents of this bill are contributing to a climate of intolerance. We will hear protests from the other side today that they have no problem with gay people. Yet here they are arguing that gay people don't deserve the same rights as everybody else. Mr. Speaker, I'm also terribly troubled by the hate spewing from some of the outside groups using the same-sex marriage issue to whip up emotions and raise money. Mr. Speaker, some of the rhetoric is just deplorable, but I doubt that we will hear any of the bill's supporters denouncing it here today on the floor. My colleagues, discrimination is discrimination, and it should find no sanctuary in our Constitution or in our hearts. It should find no sanctuary on the floor of the People's House. We all know why this proposal is before us. It's an election year. And if it's an election year, the Republican leadership will find a place on the agenda for gay bashing. This proposal is worse than a distraction. It's an assault on our fellow citizens. It's an attack on a piece of their humanity. And I urge you to stand on the right side of history and to defeat this bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to myself such time as I may consume. In response to a couple of things that my good friend said, Mr. Speaker, nowadays lots of people are claiming that marriage is a discriminatory institution. Same-sex couples say marriage discriminates against them. Believe it or not, single people are now complaining that marriage discriminates also against them. After all, say the singles, why should the state give special benefits to married parents but not to us? It gets worse. Even polygamists and believers in group marriage who call themselves polyamorous are saying that marriage discriminates against them. Now, if the support society gives to the men and women who have the potential to create children is going to be called discrimination, pretty soon there isn't going to be such a thing as a marriage at all. When one group can call marriage discrimination, then any group can make the same claim. And also, Mr. Speaker, there was a comment about, a couple who loving one another. But this is not a civil rights issue. Love, of course, is a great thing. But in my humble opinion, marriage isn't just any kind of love. It's a love that can bear children. And it's a love that involves both a mom and a dad. Two men might be a good father, but neither one is a mom. The ideal for children is the love of both a mom and a dad. No same-sex couple can provide that. The ideal for marriage is about bringing together moms and dads so children have a mother and a father to learn from. With that, Mr. Speaker, I want to yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Representative Virginia Foxx.
Gentlewoman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding me time. I also want to thank my colleagues for seeing the great need for this debate, a need which is no longer on the horizon but has reached the forefront as it has begun to affect American families. It is the right time to discuss a marriage protection amendment. As members of this Congress, we have a responsibility to look at this critical situation for marriage and the real possibility that the courts are going to redefine marriage. This constitutional amendment would concretely define marriage, as we always have, as the union between one man and one woman. The disintegration of the family is the force behind so many of our most serious social problems. We cannot turn a blind eye to the social trends that are doing the most damage to America's children. The health of American families is built upon marriage, and it affects us all. The Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court and other local courts have ruled in favor of same-sex marriages. These unsound decisions set a dangerous precedent, and that is why a constitutional amendment is necessary. If enacted, it will effectively ban these illegitimate marriages nationwide. This definition of marriage is not intended to be discriminatory, but rather to uphold the sanctity of marriage as an institution. May I have 30 seconds?
Yield the gentlewoman an additional 30 seconds.
Gentlewoman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Marriage Protection Amendment removes the definition of marriage from the hands of the courts and returns this decision to the American people where it belongs. The Massachusetts decision represents the beginning of what could be a dangerous erosion of this sacred tradition that we must protect. Will we put our faith in a few unelected activist judges seated on a bench to define marriage, or will we use the most democratic process we have to affirmatively define marriage as it is intended? We must protect the sanctity of marriage now. I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on the rule and support the Marriage Protection Amendment.
Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield at this time 3 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Kucinich.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
With all due respect to my beloved colleagues, what if a man and a woman have a partnership which doesn't produce children? Is their marriage invalid? Is it less sacred? And the use of the word illegitimate here is a little bit troubling, because I thought we dispensed with those kinds of references as we became more enlightened. You know, it's easy to take a stand for the institution of marriage in the abstract, but try doing it in your own life and that becomes a little more complex. It's far easier to tell others how they should live and whom they should be permitted to marry. The science of human relations requires humility. Whether in the heights of unity or the depths of divorce, our relationships, our companionships, our partnerships are our greatest teachers. Our relationships are also a sphere of influence which should be free from government interest or interference. Government does not belong in the bedroom or secretly listening on your phone, reading your books, reviewing your emails. Government does not have a rightful role in determining who you should love, who should love whom, and therefore enter into the formalization of a civil marriage contract. Now, we don't often quote from the Declaration of Independence here, but I think it'd be useful if I recited some words that are instructive at this moment. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, and we know now all people, are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thomas Jefferson went on to write that governments are created to secure these rights. I might add that this government was not created to crush those rights. Today, with a proposed constitutional amendment defining marriage, we would establish a law which would be at odds with the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection of the law. What's next? Amend the Pledge of Allegiance to take out the words "with liberty and justice for all"? What's next? Recarve the dais in front of us here, which has words carved in the wood, and I'll read them for those who aren't able to see them. Words carved in the wood below the speaker: tolerance, justice, union, liberty. Do we just take that apart? Move it? Leave it blank? You wonder why this Congress is not held in higher regard. I'll tell you why. In Iraq, our troops are caught in the crossfire of a civil war which grows more deadly every day. Administration has no exit strategy. Congress does nothing. Request another minute.
An additional 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized for one additional
In Iran,
minute.
the Department of Defense is actively preparing for war while the administration sets the stage for negotiations that they intend to fail. Congress does nothing. In the Middle East, the region stands on the brink of a full-blown war in which there'll be no winners. Congress does nothing. In North Korea, the administration won't negotiate with North Korea while North Korea is thumbing its nose at the international community. Congress does nothing. Here at home, you want to talk about a threat to the institution of marriage? 45 to 50 million people without health insurance. Bankruptcies at a record level, people in home foreclosures. Let's talk about a threat to the institution of marriage. Congress is doing nothing about any of that. Today, in a shameless attempt to divert and distract and distort from the lackluster performance of this Congress, the House is set to write discrimination into the U.S. Constitution. Iraq, Iran, the Middle East, North Korea, health care, gas prices, the minimum wage? No! The most pressing issue in America is gay marriage.
It's expired. Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 15 seconds. The gentleman from Ohio is concerned about the fact that what he says, what next is the Congress going to take out from the Pledge of Allegiance with liberty and justice for all? I say to my friend from Ohio, no. Later on this week, we'll have the opportunity to defend one nation under God and keeping the federal judiciary from taking that out. And with that, yield 1 minute.
Will the gentleman yield?
From North Carolina.
I'd ask the gentleman if we worship the same God.
2 minutes. Gentleman from
2 minutes to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman from Georgia for yielding. And, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to defend traditional marriage. It's hard to believe that we've come to such a time in our country that we must even debate this basic American value, that marriage is defined as the union between one man and one woman. Some may question whether or not this issue warrants a federal debate and federal action. Unfortunately, certain courts in this land have answered that question as ideological judges threaten to undo the very fabric of our families by imposing their opinions and policies as the final say on what marriage means. Mr. Speaker, families matter because fathers and mothers matter. They are not interchangeable. Literally hundreds of studies point to the crucial nature of mothers and fathers rearing children within the bonds of traditional marriage. Every deviation from the ideal model of enduring monogamous marriage between a man and a woman expands those boundaries, and when we push these limits, who is to say where the definition of marriage will end? Government and societies have granted certain institutional benefits and privileges to heterosexual marriage because these unions have the biological potential to provide societies with a tangible benefit: children. Mr. Speaker, redefining marriage to include same-sex union not only devalues marriage, but it diminishes the rights of children. Nature itself gave children this right. I wish that this fight here today was not necessary. We did not ask for it. But failure to enact a constitutional amendment will mean that the decisions made by the American people at the ballot box and through their elected representatives regarding marriage will continue to be overruled bit by a few renegade judges and local officials. Unfortunately, when judges distort the Constitution to overrule the express will of the people, only a constitutional amendment can overturn the judges. Mr. Speaker, the people in the 8th District of North Carolina have clearly and repeatedly asked me to defend traditional marriage, to do whatever it takes to ensure that the people have the final say. And that is why I rise here today. Additional 15 seconds.
Gentleman, additional 15 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized for an additional 15 seconds.
Convinced that this constitutional amendment is the right thing to do. The time is now. Let's give American moms and dads the chance to protect marriage. Urge a yes vote on the rule and the Marriage Protection Amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Parliamentary inquiry.
Gentleman's recognized.
Parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Speaker, the 14th Amendment, Section 1, says that no one shall be denied equal protection of the laws. Now, if this would pass, would this legislation, this constitutional amendment, supersede that provision of the 14th Amendment and make that provision of the 14th Amendment null and void?
Chair is prepared to rule it's not the province of the chair to interpret the pending measure or to construe its relationship to the Constitution. Those are matters to be elucidated by the members in debate. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask unanimous consent to insert in the record at this time an article that appeared in the Economist magazine entitled "The Case for Gay Marriage." I'd like to ask unanimous consent to insert in the record an executive summary of the Cato Institute's policy analysis entitled "The Federal Marriage Amendment Unnecessary, Anti-Federalist, and Anti-Democratic." I'd also like to insert in the record a letter from the Human Rights Campaign in opposition to the bill before us, a letter from the American Jewish Committee in opposition to the bill before us, a letter from the National Council of Jewish Women in opposition to the bill before us, and a letter from the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights in opposition to the bill before us.
Without objection.
And Mr. Speaker, let me also just say in response to some of the speakers who have come before us who have talked about gay marriage as somehow going against the will of the people. I will tell you that in Massachusetts, where gay marriage has been legal now for over 2 years, I think the majority of the people are absolutely fine with it. Over 8,000 gay couples have been married, and life goes on. Nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is that people in gay relationships can enjoy the same rights and privileges and responsibilities as those who are in heterosexual relationships. And I would also say to my colleagues that if you're so worried about defending the institution of marriage, then I think we should all worry about our own marriages. In Massachusetts, I should point out for the record that we have the lowest divorce rate in the country. So maybe we know something about marriage that maybe you don't. With that, I reserve the balance. I reserve my time.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 15 seconds. The gentleman from Massachusetts, I'm sure, is aware of the fact that in his state, opponents have gathered 170,000 signatures supporting a constitutional amendment they hope would end gay marriage despite what their Supreme Court did. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield 1 minute to the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We must defend traditional marriage. Marriage, family, and community are not catchphrases. They are the backbone of our American society. Sadly, however, there's an organized effort by judicial activists and the radical left in this country to destroy our traditional American culture. The Federal Marriage Amendment provides a national definition of marriage and leaves marriage laws to the state legislatures. It adds a layer of protection against court-imposed arrangements other than marriage and protects states from being forced to recognize same-sex unions created by other states. Years of social science evidence confirms that children respond best when their mom and dad are married and live in the home. That's why it's important that we defend traditional marriage and this traditional notion of family law that emphasizes the importance of this foundational principle of families, and to address the needs of children in the most positive and effective way. We must defend what is sacred in our nation against reckless actions of a dangerous few who seek to impose their liberal lunacy on our society. That is why we must fight for families, and this is a war worth fighting.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Massachusetts.
Mr. Speaker, let me say that I used to think that what was sacred in this country was defending civil rights and civil liberties and fighting against discrimination. Apparently, I'm mistaken based on the comments that I've just heard. At this point, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield 5 minutes to the gentlewoman from Wisconsin, Ms. Baldwin.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman and rise this morning in strong opposition to the rule before us. And I hope later today to return to the floor and address the substance of the federal marriage amendment, but now wanted to speak to this process because by bringing up this unnecessary and divisive amendment to write discrimination into the Constitution, the leadership of this House once again illustrates just how out of step Congress is with the rest of America. With the defeat of the amendment in the Senate a mere 5 weeks ago, this legislation should have never reached the floor of the House. Yet, unsurprisingly, politics is prevailing over common sense, and today we are going to be hearing a lot of hurtful political rhetoric targeting gay and lesbian families, all for the purpose of pandering to a narrow political base. Mr. Speaker, America faces great challenges both at home and abroad. We're confronted with record-high gas prices, an endless and expensive war in Iraq, skyrocketing health care costs, and a growing international crisis in the Middle East and North Korea. But the federal marriage amendment allowed under this rule, of course, does nothing to address these very pressing challenges. At a time of such great tests confronting our nation, America's leaders should be uniting rather than dividing our country. But the FMA does exactly the opposite of that, and it certainly puts politics ahead of real progress. The federal marriage amendment is also unnecessary. Since 2004, states around the country have been addressing the issue of gay marriage through the normal legislative and governmental process. Today, Massachusetts remains the only state that allows gay marriage, but several other states, including Vermont, Connecticut, and California, have passed laws granting civil union protections for same-sex couples. Those laws would certainly be threatened if this amendment were to pass. The proposed FMA limits the ability of states to confer protections such as important rights like hospital visitation rights, health insurance, and broader civil union or domestic partnership protections on unmarried couples. And it undermines our Federalist tradition of deferring to the states to regulate the institution of marriage. Mr. Speaker, many Americans are struggling with the issue of same-sex marriage on a personal level today. There is a vibrant debate going on across our nation, in church basements, in break rooms, in dining rooms. This debate would be completely shut down and stifled if this amendment were to pass. Our Constitution, the most cherished document embodying the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, should not be amended to single out and deny the rights of any one group of Americans. This divisive, hateful, and unnecessary amendment is unworthy of our great Constitution that has been the foundation of our great nation, and I urge my colleagues to reject this rule and to vote against the amendment. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Speaker, I want to point out to the gentlelady from Wisconsin that 45 states, currently 45, and I yield to myself 30 seconds, 45 states define marriage as a union of one man and one woman or expressly prohibit same-sex marriages. And that, in those 45 states, we're talking about, Mr. Speaker, 88% of the population of this country. We're not just talking about Georgia. And the fact is, in a constitutional amendment, 3/4 of the states will have to ratify, and I'll be glad to yield to my...
If all these states are doing what you want them to do, then why do we need a federal constitutional amendment? Yeah. I mean, if states like Massachusetts...
And reclaiming my time, and I'll yield myself an additional 10 seconds, it's because of these activist judges who are chipping away at the will of the people. And with that, I yield 1 minute to my good friend, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Nagelbauer.
Gentleman's recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you. I rise today, Mr. Speaker, in support of the definition of a marriage is between one man and one woman. I think today really what we're on the floor today is determining how America will define itself. Thousands of years and many civilizations have defined the marriage as the union between one man and one woman, with few exceptions. Those civilizations that did not follow that perished. 55 states, as the gentleman just said, have determined by people that were elected by the people of that state that marriage is the definition of a one man and one woman. And so today we're really on the floor to debate whether America will continue to define itself and the definition of marriage on a godly institution that was established thousands and thousands of years ago, that one man and one woman would come together and become one and produce families that all across America have said that the definition of marriage is between one man and one woman. I urge my colleagues today to define America as a moral country. Thank you.
Massachusetts.
Yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Moran.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Good friend from Massachusetts. You know, we have a conflagration in the Middle East today as we speak. We have raised the debt ceiling 4 times to over $9 trillion, and we're going to pass it all on to our kids. And this is how the Republican congressional leadership chooses to spend its time. Nobody's marriage is endangered. This is crazy. What this is really about, and what this amendment should be entitled, is the Gay Discrimination Act. That's all it is. And what's its motivation? It's a crass political attempt to divide America in an election year. That's what this is all about. We know it. And I suspect a lot of the American people know it as well. But you're using the Constitution to do so. Our founding fathers put together the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in order to protect and enhance individual rights and liberties. And this goes directly counter to what our Constitution is all about, prohibiting, limiting individual rights. They talked about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And boy, all you can think about is ways to make life more difficult for people who don't fall into the mainstream of America. America, that's not what America is about. This amendment needs to be defeated. And we need to stand up for human rights, for civil rights, and for states' rights. We know it's never going to get passed. It's never going to get enacted. But we shouldn't be spending our time talking about it. We shouldn't be spending our time trying to seek political gain at the expense of people who want to live committed lives with each other. That's not endangering anybody. That's what America ought to be about and what our founding fathers wanted America to be about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.